Me live is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, is a former senior Indian diplomat. Also, Sana Hashmi continues to be with us. He's a visiting fellow with the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation based in Taipei. Welcome to you both. I'm going to continue to stay and keep our focus on what's happening in Kazan right now. The plenary sessions at the BRICS have ended, and all eyes are now on that countdown to a bilateral between Modi and Xi Jinping. Ambassador Sajjanhar, your opening comments. Managing expectations is always the most important thing when it comes to India and China. Nobody is clapping hands or celebrating too much, but this is most definitely a positive development that the two leaders are meeting and that there is talk of a resolution or some kind of convergence for the first time in 2.5 to 3 years towards some kind of path towards normalcy in Ladakh, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Shiv, for having me. I agree with you. I think this is a development that needs to be welcomed, but I think we really need to be cautiously optimistic. This is a baby step forward, but it is a step forward. So I think we need to recognize that it is a step forward. But if we want, if we want to say normalization of relations, or in terms of, the situation that existed in 2019, I think there is a long way to cover. Yeah. Because as it has been mentioned, you have stated, Gaurav has stated very clearly that trust is the most important commodity that is lacking between the two sides. And India is definitely not going to take China at face value from now on. Even earlier, I don't think we were taking them at face value, but we thought as far as the agreements that had been signed between the two sides, 1993, 1996, confidence-building measures, that they would hold some value. But China, I think the manner in which it moved in 2020 April, and we still don't know what are the reasons for that, it seems to have torn those agreements to shreds. So going by our past experience of 2020, 2017, 2014, 2013, I think we will really need to be very careful. And of course, what is happening to this forward deployment of our troops, that is still a question mark. So we'll really have to move slowly.
We do have to move slowly. Expectations need to be very, very realistic. There is no room for any kind of innocence or naivety. I would go a step further and say that trust doesn't even enter the equation anymore, really. That only strategic dissuasion, convergence of interests really between the two countries can sort of keep the peace. So that's what needs to be aimed at. Aiming for any kind of trust between the two countries, in my view, will probably be a meaningless exercise, given we are faced with a country that is highly unpredictable and most definitely not credible when it comes to keeping to its commitments. And I think what happened from May 2020 onwards is a real-world example of that. Sana, the meeting between Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi for the first time in over 5 years is going to be important because of where relations have been between the two countries. Of course, one needs to be extremely realistic, but how would you see this sudden change of temperature? Over the last few weeks, there has been a sense of conciliation. Meetings have been more conciliatory. That kind of rigidity appears to have evaporated from the Chinese side, and we both know, that is not an act of generosity. Obviously, it means something. How do you read it? How do you read the run-up to things suddenly improving in such a way that the two leaders are able to meet now?
I believe that there are two perspectives here. First, from the India side, India has been very consistent when it comes to China and Xi Jinping. It was very clear from our side that Prime Minister Modi is not going to meet Xi Jinping until we really see something, a breakthrough at least. And that was definitely a breakthrough that definitely came from the Chinese side. And even if the meeting is happening, it doesn't mean that the relations are just going to be reset after this. It just means that, the communication is on. And India and the border dispute is not going to be on the back burner for India. It's definitely going to be at the front seat for India when it comes to cooperation. There is no cooperation without the dispute resolution. And India is not going to accept the repeated standoff. I think that was perhaps a warning, but if it happens next time, India's policy, India's approach towards China is going to be firmer than what we have seen in the past 4 years. Now coming to Chinese perspective.
Yes.
This is definitely a concessionary approach from the Chinese side. And if we look at how Xi Jinping has been approaching India and Prime Minister Modi, there was definitely a willingness, there was definitely this desire to meet Prime Minister Modi and to project to the West that India is open to cooperation with China. And also, India is not as reliable as the West thinks India as a reliable partner. This is just a projection from the Chinese side. And even if you look at the pictures, images that are coming out of the BRICS summit, you would see Russian president in the middle, and then on one side there is Chinese President Xi Jinping, and on the other side,
leaders. Yes, Sana, go on.
On the other side, there is Indian Prime Minister. So this idea, of course, it's about BRICS. BRICS is being projected as something that is a huge development. It's a very successful summit. But apart from that, there is also projection of RIC being alive. And RIC is going to be the next big thing after BRICS. So definitely there is there is strategic thinking from the Chinese side, as well as in Prime Minister Modi didn't meet President Xi Jinping in any of the summits, on the silence of any of the summits. And this was primarily one of the reasons why Chinese President Xi Jinping didn't come to India to attend G20 summit, because he didn't get a bilateral with Prime Minister Modi. So that actually tells that there is no difference in India's approach. So India hasn't really become soft on China. India has got something, and this is one of the reasons why we are seeing this bilateral today. But definitely Chinese side has been showing some concession, has given some concession. Details are, of course, unknown as of now. But we can't really expect much from the Chinese side. We have seen in the past that the olive branch was extended in 2019. We saw Galwan, our soldiers have died. So I'm not really very optimistic with what Xi Jinping is going to offer to India.
Okay, very, very important context that Sana lays out for us, which is that the bilateral has been asked for from the Chinese side, not just this time, but earlier as well. But India has been consistent in refusing a bilateral unless there is some kind of visible concession or a visible intent towards forward movement. And that kind of intent appears to have been achieved this time. And I agree with Sana. The details of that concession are not very clear right now. There are many questions the managing expectations of what those concessions are is going to be key to understanding how this actually unfolds. Ambassador Sajanhar, when the two leaders meet, we're told that they're going to be meeting behind closed doors. Obviously, there will be a photo op. Then they will meet for about 40 minutes. What kind of conversation? I'm asking a question that millions of people watching would like to ask. What kind of conversation takes place behind closed doors between these two leaders in the context of what has happened over the last 4 years? A war-like situation, bloodletting in Galwan, like Sana referred to, now a sudden intent towards normalizing things. From a diplomatic perspective, you've been a diplomat, you've been in those closed doors rooms where discussions like these have happened. What would the two leaders potentially talk about?
Yeah, Shiv, let me sort of, frame it, bring the context here. I have attended a large number of such diplomatic meetings, closed-door meetings, but I think this is very, very special. This is very, very different. This is very, very unusual. So I think it's very difficult to predict as to what it is going to be. Second point I would like to make is that obviously, it's been quite clear since quite some time that China has been wanting to mend fences and to move forward as far as India is concerned. Of course, we can look at whatever, we can speculate as to what the reasons are. That Gaurav had asked this question to Vikram Misri yesterday, Foreign Secretary, and he said, okay, we'll look at that, going forward. But I think many reasons. One is, of course, you mentioned, Sana mentioned, that, India had very clearly indicated that it is not going to budge, it is not going to move as far as, our interest in ensuring that there is peace and tranquility on the border and that we are able to get, what we've been asking for in terms of patrolling at different points. but also going forward in terms of de-escalation and de-induction, as and when that happens. But I think China has both in terms of sending out a message, as you said, but also looking at the Indian market. I think as far as its own economy is concerned, as far as its possibilities in terms of the US market, in terms of the European market, in terms of the, if not the decoupling, the delinking of de-risking of, the Chinese economy from the Western economies. So I think it sees India as a good market. And of course, as far as trade relations are concerned, China is still doing very well, has a huge surplus balance of trade with India.
Correct.
But still it sees that there are possibilities. So I think once when if one were to speculate as to what possibly is going to happen, I think both the leaders, Shiv, realize that these are big countries, 1.4 billion, large economies, one second largest economy in the world, one about to become the third largest economy in the world. So how have they to manage their relations? So I think it is under this weight of realism that both these leaders will be meeting when it is a one-to-one, and possibly trying to as I said right at the beginning, this is a, what has happened is a baby step. It's a tactical move. And how to sort of, move forward so that we are able to avoid conflicts, we are able to avoid confrontation. But I don't think anyone should give up that position that China will give up on its objectives of being hegemonistic as far as Asia is concerned, trying to dominate Asia, trying to control whatever is happening in Asia, and sending out a message to India that, it doesn't measure up as far as China is concerned. So I think it will be under all those realities that this conversation is going to take place.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because, the one thing we can all agree on is that China is not a country that likes sharing strategic space. So there are very good reasons why this air of concession is taking place now. There is no question of India being sort of blindsided by what's going on. India is very much a player in this 4D chess tournament that appears to be going on. Let's never forget that the West, the United States, Europe, the EU, are all players in what is taking place at this point of time. The pulls and pressures, geopolitically speaking, often simplified quite often on social media to say, oh, look how Canada and the United States have delivered India into the hands of Russia or China, or the other way around. That may be very, very simplistic to scholars like all of you, but to the public at large, it really does seem like a large global-scale chess tournament going on between the big powers. And at one level, it also stands to be true. Welcoming onto our coverage, Antara Singh Ghoshal, who's a well-known China scholar as well. Antara, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Your comments as we count down, Antara. The meeting between Modi and Xi Jinping is expected to begin any minute now, unless it has already begun and we still don't have the live pictures there. So it could come any moment now. But your opening thoughts on this handshake. Here on India Today, we're not bursting crackers. We're not saying, hooray, this is a great, big achievement by the two countries. Lots of, realism in our coverage. What do you think about it, Antara? Opening comments.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Shiv. And what I'm getting from looking at the Chinese media and how they are reacting to it, there have been an editorial in Global Times which says that it is an opportunity which is worth cherishing. And I do agree to it that it is a rare opportunity. And, without being very excited about it, we should be cautiously optimistic about it.
Yes.
And one thing that I'm getting from seeing the Chinese sources is about Russia's role in it. And, there is a lot of discussion about how Russia has played a peacemaker in this case. And, this buzz about India, Russia, and China trilateral has been
Yes.
going on since long. I mean, since Prime Minister Modi visited Russia earlier this year. Since then, there have been a lot of discussions in China about this kind of, trilateral. I mean, restarting the trilateral. And
Correct.
one of the reasons why China thinks that, why China is interested in this kind of a trilateral is that, of course, the changes in the international situation, about the rifts that
Yes.
are presently becoming visible between India and the Western countries. So many in China are seeing it as an opportunity to revive the Russia, China, and India trilateral.